What's up, guys? Welcome back to Newswave. Well, yesterday, Nintendo took over the internet after dropping the Switch 2 reveal trailer at 8 a.m. right away in the morning. And, well, there are a lot of things we could take away from that, as well as things now to look forward to. And we're going to go over all the fallout from that Switch 2 reveal trailer here today. Also, we're going to be talking about some software, as a certain game was also shown off, which makes a lot of sense if you look at the Switch sales charts currently. And we also had a report coming out of Bloomberg around Sony and how a couple of their key studios actually had games canceled. And some of these, I gotta be real, are just head scratching. So if you guys enjoy these videos, make sure you hit that like button, helps out a ton. And if new here to the Spawn Wave channel, make sure you subscribe down below. And of course, members for the channel do get Newswave early. If you would like to learn more about that, click the join button down below this video. And we're gonna start today with Shuhei Yoshida, as he did talk with Kinda Funny during like a podcast and went over all kinds of stuff about the PlayStation business when he was there technically, as of course he's left now. And part of that had to do with the Vita, him sort of reminiscing and also reflecting on, well, what went wrong with it. We can actually see this posted up. This was posted by Genki over on Twitter X, saying the main reason that Shuhei shared was development resources were split and they didn't have enough studios to make games for two platforms. So they had to prioritize PS4 development. Now they also went over some of the other reasons, like the memory cards, they're proprietary, which, yeah, pretty big mistake there. The back touchpad just not being very necessary, adding on to the cost of the system. The OLED panel itself on that initial run for the Vita 1000 with production costs, dev kit, etc., etc. But I do think the biggest thing is games generally define a console, and when you're struggling to make enough games for both because you are split between the two, yes, it's going to make it difficult to hold up both at once. And it's very obvious that the PS4 really gained momentum and they shifted focus completely to that. And that's one of the reasons I figured they wouldn't attempt, that being Sony, a handheld again until the handheld could just run the same games as the home console. And I think we're just about there, which is one of the reasons why in a few years we will see Sony at least reintroduce some sort of handheld, most likely to go along with the PlayStation 6. Also, while all eyes right now are on April for the big Switch 2 blowout event that we'll get to here in a bit, it looks like we may have something else to look forward to from Nintendo next month. This was posted up over on FAMF boards from PH Brazil and made the rounds very, very quickly, saying, thankfully the February Direct is just around the corner. This is not the first time that we've heard about the idea of a February Direct. I believe Brazil also had mentioned this previously, that there would be a Switch 1, I'll just say Switch 1 only Direct. And the thing with that, though, is technically that's also a Switch 2 Direct, since we know that these games are just backwards compatible physically and digitally, we assume, with the Switch 2. So anything you see there, I guess will even run better on the Switch 2. We're still unsure as to how all the fine details of backwards compatibility, but there are some loose ends we still need to tie up for the current system when it comes to something like Metroid Prime 4, that being a big one, and maybe, I don't know, ports of Prime 2 and 3, maybe that Wind Waker Twilight Princess collection shows up, or just any other number of random games I'm sure Nintendo has to throw at the Switch as it's on its way out to make way for the Switch 2. Oh, and good news for Steam Deck users who wanted to get Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. This was shared over on their official account. It looks like the Steam Deck will indeed be supporting Final Fantasy VII Rebirth completely, as it is now fully verified, green check marks across the board. And I mean, this is great news in general. I know Rebirth is a game that certainly, we'll say, stretched the limits of the PlayStation 5 itself. It did, if you have it in performance mode, look like Vaseline was smeared on the screen, and then if you knocked it down into fidelity mode, it ran like it was underwater. So I am still curious to see how it'll run on the Steam Deck itself, and technically this does lean into the idea of Square Enix getting Rebirth working on lower powered devices compared to something like the PS5 or the PS5 Pro, for example, which then also lines up with the idea of technically the Switch 2 getting a Rebirth port apparently next year, according to reports. And well, let's face it, especially recently, very recently, Nate's kind of been on it. And guys, with some of the quick news out of the way, let's get into the bigger stuff. Let's start right away with that Nintendo Switch 2 reveal trailer, as people were losing hope there, especially after, well, the day before, where people were wondering if Nintendo would make some sort of formal announcement that they would be revealing the system. They didn't. Instead, they really did shadow drop the Switch 2 reveal trailer, 8 a.m. Eastern Time, which would have been the same time as Newswave. I say would have been because Newswave did go up an hour earlier, which, I mean, complete accident. I meant to click 8 a.m. and I accidentally clicked 7 a.m. for the scheduling. And hey, you know what? Sometimes you just get lucky with it. Gave a nice hour buffer there. But anyway, the reveal trailer itself has exploded online, as you would expect. Finally, an official look at Nintendo's next generation device, not one provided by somebody in a factory somewhere in China with AI backgrounds. This is the real deal. So we can take a look at some of the trailer here as we go over some of the key points. And this trailer itself, #1 trending, last I checked, had more than, I think, 11 million views at the time of this recording. So yeah, it seems to be garnering a lot of interest online. Now, the features confirmed in the trailer, we do have the big one, seemingly that mouse functionality. We can tell because they turned the Joy-Cons sideways on purpose, had the wrist straps and guards on there, and then they were racing all around the table, kind of showcasing the idea of them acting as a mouse, with that IR sensor also being in view as they were rotating around the Joy-Cons and them transforming into the newer ones. So yeah, I think we look at that as that must be one of the key points or key functions that the Switch 2 will introduce. The idea of using it and playing maybe RTS style games, even, just navigating the menu could even be just better in general. I'm curious if maybe one of the shoulder buttons at the top is touch enabled and you can use it as almost a scroll wheel. There's a lot of potential there, so we'll see. Again, Nintendo will be talking quite a bit more about this system in a couple of months, but the thing as I'm going through this, it's not really too surprising what we saw, right? Because of the leaks, and it mostly showed what we saw here in the video already. Now, there were a few things that were off with some of the renders, but they were very close. Something that seems to be leaving people scratching their head right now, the C button. It's not there. It's blank in the video. Now, is that just how it's going to look? A blank square? I don't think so. I think in this case, Nintendo decided not to include that C button, or at least the cutout on that button, just to sort of keep it out of view until they're ready to talk about it fully, because I do think it's going to be a major factor. And think about this. If we didn't know about that C button at all, what would we be talking about right now? We'd be talking about the mystery button that Nintendo did not acknowledge at all, has no markings on it at all. And we'd be going into this big blowout direct, and I assume then they would tell us, oh, it's a C button, here you go, it's going to transform further, and we'll engrave a nice little C here for you, and here's what it does. We also did see that second USB-C port that is on top, so we do indeed have one on the bottom, one on top, which until they show us maybe extra accessories or some creative, feature for it, I'm going to assume it's just, hey, if it's in tabletop mode, you can charge easier. That doesn't necessarily mean that we won't have accessories and stuff years down the road that even third parties attempt to introduce there. But at least for now, that's kind of what I'm envisioning it's for. But they did show the U-shaped kickstand. It does fold pretty much all the way out so the system can go nearly flat, very similar to the Switch OLED kickstand. The curved dock also in view with the nice big Switch 2 logo on the front. And to close out, we do have more information coming to us April 2nd. What's funny is that I think the Nintendo UK trailer was the first one that popped up and people thought it was February 4th and got real excited. Oh, okay, a couple of weeks. No, it's actually a couple of months. So yeah, it is kind of a shame that we have to wait a bit longer to hear more about this thing, because now we know the next step are just going to be a massive number of games, and the fact that Nintendo has been doing a lot of these ports and remasters, we have to assume they got some big time stuff ready to show. I don't know, like a big 3D Mario game, or maybe a new Mario Kart. Actually, you know what? We'll get to that in a bit here. First, though, we had some other details, and Nintendo will be doing the rounds again with this. So on their website, they have hands-on events that'll be taking place, and they did this with the first Switch. I actually went to one, I think it was in Washington, D.C. I think I said that before. It was pretty cool. Went there and got a chance to play it. In this case, though, over on their website right now, they have some of the venues and dates marked. So New York, Los Angeles, and Dallas will all be locations in the US. And then up in Canada, we have Toronto. So you can kind of see those here. Europe, Oceania, and Asia all also have venues marked out with dates. And it looks like it's running all the way up until June 1st, which has led people to believe that, okay, well, the hands-on experiences we assume wouldn't still be happening if the system was out, although I guess they could view it as maybe a marketing opportunity just to showcase to people in that area. But if we're going by this is all preview stuff, then I guess the system would most likely be launching at some point in June after the first, which would be the last event. It's important to note that the way this is going to work, it's no purchase necessary. It seems to be like a lottery. So when they do open signups, everyone can just throw their name in the hat, basically. Nintendo will go around, pick them out. I guess they're going to do it by venue. So maybe you just sign up per venue. And then technically, I guess at that point, if you sign up for all of them, if you can get there, like fly out or travel or whatever, you can go to it. But I'll probably look towards the New York one, but I'm not really expecting to get in because I've seen what happens with something like even just the playtest for the Switch. The site crashed. What do you think is going to happen with the Switch 2 after seeing what that reveal trailer did on YouTube? Anyway, after all of this went down, Nintendo's stock did jump, actually went up to a 52-week high for the company, $15.77. Dr. Serkan Toto described this saying, investors were afraid of another Wii U situation where Nintendo tries to experiment or over-innovate, but misses what users actually demand. So there is certainly some relief in the financial community about Switch 2. For this cycle transition, investors are hoping for a more iPhone-like iterative approach. Nintendo certainly delivered from that perspective. In after hours, the stock then dropped 5%, and I noticed that Machizuki said that investors there were hoping for something a bit weird or different, and it looks maybe a little too similar to the Switch, so all that's told me is investors in the market don't really know what they want. So there you go. Oh, and I'm sure the idea of the system selling out and being very, very difficult to get is on everyone's mind right now watching this, wants to pick one of these up. Well, it also looks like Nintendo, according to Bloomberg, is preparing behind the scenes to try to meet as much demand as possible in year one. This is posted up. This is over on My Nintendo News, citing Bloomberg, saying a new report suggests that Nintendo is very aware about the demand, saying they've prepared a supply chain network that will allow the company to sell more than 20 million Switch 2 units in its first year. Now, that is about 2 million, I think, above what the Switch 1 did in its first year, and it was still a hard system to get, but I think 20 million, I mean, it'd be nice if a company could they could just make 50 million, but there's a lot that goes into that. Factory lines, setting things up, logistics, parts. 20 million, I feel like, is a pretty good number to target year one. And let's face it, they'll sell all of them. Now, again, if you're trying to make sure you're at least available for pre-orders when they go live, it also looks like many retailers, their pages are going up to remind you when those pages are going up. Yeah, so Best Buy has one up. We have GameStop. Theirs is listed, and I'm sure many others will follow suit. So if anything, I would go around, drop emails that you can check consistently into those different submission forms so that you can be prepared when pre-orders go live, which I would assume is going to be right at the presentation, April 2nd, since that's when we'll find out about the release date as well as the price point. So big stuff here right now for the Switch 2. A lot of excitement. Just got to wait a couple of months for the big presentation from Nintendo. But in the meantime, don't be shocked to see a bunch of third parties start dropping that Switch 2 logo in their trailers going forward. Next up, I did want to quickly touch on a game that was briefly shown during that Switch 2 reveal trailer, and that is a new Mario Kart game. Now, when I was doing the reaction for it, I kind of jokingly was like, oh, look, Mario Kart 8 Deluxe. But then as it's going through, it's like, okay, well, no, this looks like a new Mario Kart game. Sure, we'll just say Mario Kart for now, because we're still trying to figure out what it's called. And this is very similar to what Nintendo did when the Switch was originally shown back in 2016, where they showed off-screen footage of things like a new 3D Mario game, they showed a new Splatoon game, and they didn't really discuss it much until their big presentation a couple of months later. Seems to be the same road they're taking here, Mario Kart, but like here's quick shots of it here, and some of the big things that were pointed out. This appears to be a new track, Mario Bros. Circuit, and Donkey Kong in particular. Their character design has changed. It looks to be more from the Super Mario movie. And the big thing that people honed in on here and were like, hold on a minute, this could be big time for this game. There's like 24 starting lines, and now people are wondering if they've doubled the number of people racing on a track at any given time. Almost like we're playing Halo, Big Team Battle, almost like Big Kart Battle, Big Kart Racing. Like there's a lot of cool things they could do here with that many people in one race. And that does kind of make me then think that would indeed be a Switch 2 exclusive, because you figure if they were going to do a Mario Kart game like that for the Switch, they would have already done it. Although I guess one of the best games you can launch with and then also still have cross-gen is Mario Kart 9 or Mario Kart 10. We still have to figure out what it's going to be called, because apparently Mario Kart Tour, the phone game, is 9, and the number I think is kind of thought up. Maybe we'll just call it something completely different, right? Just an actual subtitle or something with Mario Kart. Nonetheless, this makes a lot of sense. It's the best-selling game on the Switch currently. It's well known. It seems that one out of every like two people have Mario Kart 8 Deluxe. So that's what you're going to show. Now, because it was so quick and flashing on screen and being off-screen footage, I'm sure there are many people who saw it was like, oh my gosh, great, it plays Mario Kart 8 Deluxe. But again, closer examination, you'll see it as just a brand new Mario Kart game, and that's pretty exciting. It's cool to see that at least be shown, because for a minute there, it really did look like they weren't going to turn that Switch 2 on at all, so at least they showed us something. Again, we'll just have to wait a bit longer to see some of the big titles and find out what exactly the thing's launching with. And in our last bit of news, let's talk about a couple of games that appear to have been canceled at Sony, with 2 studios in particular. And I gotta say, I read this report. I can't believe that this is, it's borderline devastating, especially for me anyway, with one studio in particular that I think has a ton of talent. And it's some malpractice almost going on at Sony right now. Anyway, this is coming from Bloomberg and Jason Schreier, so the sourcing's good there. We can see this posted up, where they say the games at Oregon-based Bend Studio and Texas-based Bluepoint Games were both live service projects designed to draw recurring revenue from players. We know about the live service push from Sony right now. Not shocking to hear, but again, kind of disappointing in this case. A company spokesperson confirmed the cancellations. In a statement, the spokesperson said the 2 games were canceled following a recent review, and that Sony will continue making both online and single-player games. By the way, this completely reminds me of what happened with Last of Us Factions 2, following a recent review. Interesting. Okay, so all I can assume is that they realized, that being Bluepoint or Bend Studio, that they would be focused in on this live service game completely. Wouldn't be able to do much else because they'd have to continue updating these things, or maybe the gameplay or monetization loop just wasn't there. Now, we can see this say, quote, Bend and Bluepoint are highly accomplished teams who are valued members of the PlayStation Studios family, and we are working closely with each studio to determine what the next projects are. Okay, so it does not appear that Bluepoint and Bend are being shut down, so that's at least good news there, silver lining. But if you're wondering what exactly Bluepoint was working on, as Bend Studio seems to be an unnamed live service game, this is from Jason Schreier over on Blue Sky, saying, fans have long wondered what Bluepoint has been working on for the last couple of years. I can report it was a live service God of War game. What is going on? A live service God of War. Were they going to, did they look at Ascension and go, you know what? Needs a battle pass. Then we can go to the next level. Because you think God of War live service, immediately God of War multiplayer, but I just don't. The thing that worked really well with the past 2 God of War games is its narrative experience, and that leans in heavily to it being a single player game. High quality single player game, right? And that's the thing here. I just don't. They were running support, apparently, on God of War Ragnarok from 2020 to 2022. And then 2022 to now, they're working on this live service God of War game up until the other day when it was canceled. That's what Bluepoint's been doing since Demon Souls? What? There's so many other things they could have been doing, and this was it? I would have even preferred them to just be doing a remake or something. They could have remade Legend of Dragoon, and I'd be like, oh, that's awesome. All right, cool. Let's see what they can do with that. It seems strange for Sony to pick up Bluepoint, bring them into the family, and then be like, okay, God of War live service game, that's the one. For a studio that's known to do some incredible remakes and remasters, even letting them do an original game, it's just baffling. But I guess going back years and years, this would have been like a Jim Ryan decision. But Herman Holst, he's running the show right now, so a lot of it's going to fall back on him, and not a great look in this case. So the other problem, it's not necessarily the lost money, it's lost time. If they're going to start working on new projects now, guys, they might as well start working on PlayStation 6 games, and, well, we'll see them in 4 or 5 years with their new project that hopefully makes it out the door this time. And before we go to the comment of the day, we'll take a look at the poll that I posted up yesterday, which is Game of the Year madness. We can see it is Stellar Blade against Silent Hill 2. It looks like Stellar Blade is taking it 53% to 47%. Stellar Blade moving on, actually. So that's another one I think to watch throughout this tournament. Stellar Blade it has obviously a lot of fan interest behind it right now, but I kind of thought Black Myth Wukong had that too, and that fell to Indiana Jones. So it kind of feels like I'm putting these polls up, and I legitimately at times I have no idea who's going to win. So it's actually been a really, really interesting bracket this so far. And we'll finish up with the comment of the day, as you're seeing here. This is from 14, who says, Newswave is an hour early today. Threw me off a bit thinking I was late for work. Yeah, I don't know. Again, the clicking, put it up an hour early. It was strange stuff, certainly. But just, it won't happen again. Just that one time where the Switch 2 may have been revealed. So who knows? Coincidence, I guess there. But hey, next time, maybe we hear about a direct or something. Maybe it goes early by accident again. We'll see. But yeah, don't worry. I won't throw you off, hopefully, when it comes to work-related scheduling. I know people tell me they set their clock seemingly to Newswave unless there's daylight savings time, which throws everything off again. But don't worry, we'll be back 8 a.m. Eastern today, and then pretty much the rest of the time going forward. And ladies and gentlemen, that's going to do it here for Newswave. If you enjoyed this video, guys, hit that like button. If not, hit the dislike. Leave comments down below about everything we talked about here today. If you missed yesterday's Newswave, I'll leave it up here in a card. Or maybe you wanted to see some of my initial reactions to the Switch 2 when it was first revealed, I'll leave that right below it. Thanks, guys, for watching, and I'll see you next time.